Mr. Rishi Pathania, Vice President CSR, UPL Limited, to come on the desk. Sir, please. Mr. Pavan Kaushik, Author and Storyteller, Vice President, Corporate Communication and MDM India Group. Sir, please come up on the desk. Dr. Rishi Tiwari, Social Sector Leader. Sir, please come on the desk. Professor Sapna in Narula, Founder, Dean of School of Management Studies, Nalanda University. Ma'am.
Given an award that was called Mahatma Award, and for once I wanted to return the award, and for no political reason. You know why? I just called up my wife and told her that I got this Mahatma Award. She said, "Why did you get an award? Did they like your hairstyle, so they gave you Mahatma Award?" Right? Looks like. So that is why I felt maybe I should give back an award. That was also to wake you up. I have an amazing set of panelists, and I'm really honored. In fact, I also wanted to share Hussein's conspiracy theory. In fact, we were together in Jesus Skill and Power, and we were from communication, and he knows I love talking. So he wanted to shut me up, so he made me a moderator. He said, "Okay, you don't play Arnab Goswami, you just moderate so that others can speak, and I'll try my best to let others speak, because we have such learned set of panelists who I'm honored to be moderating today." Thank you very much. And also just wanted to make one more point before we get into our discussion, that was about ESG. We keep saying ESG is a cost, who will pay for that cost? Can we also consider ESG as an investment that will give us huge returns? That will change the perspective. Okay, so let me get into this. In fact, when we talk of CSR is one set of sustainability and ESG. And we always used to say that there are 3 P's about people, planet and profits. So I always believe that can you replace the word profit with prosperity? And to that, in case we can include inclusive growth, so that prosperity is for everyone. So that changes the mindset, and that is how we come into CSR. And that was one. Second was, Mr. Vivek was also mentioning about taking care of resources and leaving some for the future generation. So in case we can bring in one more P in case we can bring, that is perpetuity. Can we look at perpetual resources? So we have 2 kinds of resources: natural resources, renewable resources, non-renewable resources. Renewable anyway are good to use, but non-renewable resources like coal also, can we look at something like coal to liquid, coal to gas, so that we can happily use even non-renewable resources, and we leave some for the perpetuity for the future generations. So since we are running late by about 45 minutes to 1 hour, so I had planned to introduce everyone. So we will club that with the first set of questions that I am going to ask of each panelist, and I will request as they respond to the answer, they'll briefly introduce themselves. We have Sakina Baker, who's head of CSR for Bosch. In addition to that, she also heads Bosch Foundation. So first question for her is very interesting. I would like to ask her about CSR strategy, but also including top management's role in the CSR strategy. So Sakina, in case you can kindly introduce yourself and please answer this question.
Thank you, Arun. I am Sakina, as you already know by now, and I head CSR for Bosch. But this position is like 20 years from the day I started. I started my career in the non-profit sector. I was a social work. I'm from social work background. First 8 days of my life I've been in the professional life, I've been in the NGO sector. Moved to corporate sector post that. But corporate has not corporatized me, so I must say that I'm still an NGO person by heart. But yes, emotions are less. I think practicality is more now in my way of working. The question, cannot blindly go for emotions and start doing random piece of social work without thinking of sustainability, without thinking of the path where it is leading, without thinking of the impact on the large scale, and also scalability and replicability. Everything goes hand in hand. If we have the strategy in place, we will be able to think long term, and I think thinking long term helps to create the right impact on the ground. It doesn't matter what subject you're working on, it doesn't matter whether you're working on environment, you're working on healthcare, education. What matters is what exactly are you trying to change and what is the problem that you are trying to solve. If you don't have the idea of problem, then what are you going to solve? So that is extremely important for us at the corporate level to have the right strategy in place, making sure it has the numbers set right, it has the right content in its place, and it has the right targets in its place. So we are not only talking about number targets, we're talking about qualitative targets as well. What is it that we are trying to change? Now this strategy cannot be done on our own. If we start thinking of a CSR department that the strategy is very good to do and then we have expertise and education to do it, the leadership plays a very important role. If you don't have the leadership along with you, you will never be able to fulfill that strategy. But I'll maybe give an example of Bosch itself. Bosch is known for its social initiatives across the globe, not only in India, and the law wasn't required for Bosch to invest in CSR. It was doing it anyways. The best part about it is that leadership has been supportive of our cause. We don't only have CSR, but we also have the foundation. What we can't do through CSR, we take support of foundation to do things on ground. And the leaders' support has been so immense that they are involved almost every month into discussing CSR for us. So I think it goes hand in hand. You have the leadership support, and I think in the earlier panel it was also discussed. If the leaders are involved, whether it is ESG discussions or CSR discussions, it becomes a lot more easy to implement things on ground, and it becomes a lot more easy to make sure the impact is happening at the right way. Involving leadership, definitely, I would recommend that we should have them with us from day one itself.
Very well stated, Sakina, especially on strategy and planning. You know, they say that in case you spend 1 hour in strategizing and planning, you save 8 hours in execution. So, well said. And also, involvement of leadership, especially since they're supposed to lead by example. I'll share a very interesting thing. I used to work with Maruti Suzuki, and we had this Japanese director. Once he was walking through the corridor, he picked up a sheet of paper. So generally people thought, oh, he's cleanliness freak, so he picked it up and put it in the dustbin. He did not put it in the dustbin, he took it to his desk, started using on both sides of the paper. So that is leading by example. So well said, Sakina, really well said. And interestingly, we have a very interesting panel wherein we don't share any common interest. We are from diverse areas, therefore we get to share diverse views on diverse topics. So next we have Dr. Rishi Tiwari, who's a doctorate in library and information sciences, and he's worked extensively on prison reforms. In fact, one of the previous speakers had mentioned about human rights. Even criminals have human rights, and Dr. Rishi Tiwari has worked with a lot of prisons, setting up libraries in the prisons, and I'll request him to introduce himself and maybe then share some of the interesting reforms that he's implementing.
Good evening all. My name is Dr. Rishi Tiwari, and I was working with one of the very leading management institute of this country, Birla Institute of Management Technology, Greater Noida, for last 17 years. And recently I have joined Jaipur in Malviya National Institute of Technology as a librarian. So when I was in BIMTech, I was given additional responsibility of CEO of BIMTech Foundation, as well as I established my own NGO, Ranganathan Society for Social Welfare and Library Development. So we started creating and establishing libraries in nearby villages of Nagar. But in 2012, I got a news of prison reform of Tamil Nadu. There was a news in Hindu paper, and that was a turning point. So here the point I want to put here is जेल में है कौन, वो कौन लोग हैं जो जेल में रहते हैं, और वो कौन लोग हैं जो जेल में जाते हैं और क्यों जाते हैं. एक बहुत बड़ा प्रश्न है. When I shared this idea with my management in BIMTech that I want to start some activities in prison, most of the faculty colleagues students and management, they were not in favor to start any activities in prison. इस देश में लगभग 5.5 लाख लोग हैं जो 1600 विभिन्न प्रकार की जेलों में रह रहे हैं, और उनके जब आंकड़े देखते हैं तो पता लगता है कि लगभग 70% इनमेट्स आर ईदर इलिटरेट और सेमी इलिटरेट, लाइटली इलिटरेट, और लगभग 70% ही कैदी ऐसे हैं कि जो अंडर ट्रायल हैं। क्राइम ब्यूरो की रिपोर्ट कहती है दैट ओनली 1.8% इनमेट्स आर रेगुलर ऑफेंडर्स। तो जब रेगुलर ऑफेंडर्स केवल 1.7% हैं, व्हाट अबाउट अदर्स? और एक इतना बड़ा कहना चाहिए अभिशाप है कि जो बंदा एक बार जेल होके चला जाता है, जेल होके आ जाता है, सोसाइटी उसको खुले हाथों से एक्सेप्ट नहीं करती है। क्या हम लोग एक्सेप्ट करने के लिए तैयार हैं? और आज सुबह से मैं सुन रहा था कि जैसे कि किसी एक पैनलिस्ट ने यहाँ बोला कि इंडिया हैज बिकम द रेप कैपिटल ऑफ द वर्ल्ड। आई डोंट एग्री विद हिम। India is not in that worst position, but ultimately that is not a point of concern and discussion here. The point is that who is responsible for that. छत्तीसगढ़ में आज हम डिस्कशन कर रहे हैं। छत्तीसगढ़ इंडिया का एकमात्र सबसे टॉप लेवल का स्टेट है जो कि जेलों में ओवर क्राउडिंग का झेल रहा है। ओवर क्राउडिंग का मतलब है कि जहां अगर 100 लोगों की कैपेसिटी है वहां 400 लोग रह रहे हैं। सबसे ज्यादा ओवर क्राउडिंग का शाप छत्तीसगढ़ झेल रहा है, और वो लोग हैं कि जो इलिटरेट हैं, जिनका पता ही नहीं है कि उनके राइट्स क्या हैं। इट मींस इट शोज दैट वी लिटरेट पीपल आर मिसयूजिंग देयर इलिटरेसी। तो एक प्रयास किया गया कि जेलों के अंदर एक इकोसिस्टम ऐसा क्रिएट किया जाए ताकि उनके अंदर दोबारा से रोशनी आए और वो सोसाइटी के मेन स्ट्रीम को ज्वाइन कर पाएं, मेन लाइन को ज्वाइन कर पाएं। तो 2012 में उत्तर प्रदेश की पहली जेल को हम लोगों ने ऑप्ट किया, दैट वाज इन गाजियाबाद, और वहां पर एक वेल फर्निश्ड, वेल इक्विप्ड लाइब्रेरी की स्थापना की गई जिसमें लगभग 5,500 किताबें थी। 250 से 300 लगभग पुरानी मूवीज का एक लैब तैयार किया गया, और वहाँ के जो हार्ड कोर क्रिमिनल्स जिनके ऊपर कन्विक्टेड थे उनको आइडेंटिफाई करके उनको ट्रेनिंग दे करके लाइब्रेरी स्टैब्लिश की। वहां से वो जर्नी स्टार्ट हुई। आज उत्तर प्रदेश की 15 जेलों में लाइब्रेरीज हैं। जहां जहां लाइब्रेरीज हैं वहां के, ज़्यादा समय नहीं है बताने के लिए, केवल इतना बताऊंगा कि वहां के जो सुसाइडल केसेस थे, सुसाइडल टेंडेंसीज थी, उसमें लगभग 200% की कमी आई। रेगुलर जेल में दूसरा एक सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम होती है वो रेगुलर फाइट्स की, रेगुलर पैरल्स की, खाली है, नकारात्मकता है। छोटी सी बात में किसी ने कुछ कमेंट कर दिया, उठा करके मारपीट शुरू हो गई, और जेल प्रशासन के लिए बड़ा मुश्किल होता है कि उनको जो पूरी सोसाइटी के लिए जो मुश्किल है वो उन 5, 7, 10 या 20, 25 लोगों के पास अंदर है। जस्ट ट्राई टू थिंक, उन कैदियों से ज्यादा नकारात्मक सोच इस समय सबसे ज्यादा काम अगर करना है जेल प्रशासन में सुधार के लिए, तो कैदियों पर काम करने की आवश्यकता नहीं है, वहां पर जो कर्मी है उनके ऊपर काम करने की आवश्यकता है। तो वहां इकोसिस्टम क्रिएट किया गया। लगभग 70% रेगुलर क्वेरल्स की में कमी आई है। ये ऑन रिकॉर्ड है जो कि लखनऊ प्रिजन डिपार्टमेंट को सबमिट किया गया। फिर धीरे धीरे कोशिश की गई कि उस लाइब्रेरी, क्या केवल लाइब्रेरी बनाई जाए, तो लाइब्रेरी में वहाँ ओपन स्कूल का डिपार्टमेंट खोला गया, इग्नू का सेंटर खोला गया, छोटे छोटे क्रिएटिव वर्क करने के लिए ट्रेनिंग सेशंस खोले गए ताकि अंडर वन रूफ मैक्सिमम services can be, maximum skill development programs can be provided to the inmates। और उसमें से कई प्रोफेसर हैं जो जेल में हैं, किसी इंसिडेंट या एक्सीडेंट की वजह से चले गए। MBA स्टूडेंट्स हैं, बड़े बड़े ऐसे बच्चे हैं कि जिनकी सैलरी जो है 50-50 लाख का पैकेज था, वो लोग जेल में। तो उनको मोटिवेट करके उनको वहाँ सुधारा गया। आज उन लोगों ने लीडरशिप, वो लोग लीड ले रहे हैं, और अल्टीमेटली उसका रिजल्ट ये हो रहा है कि उत्तर प्रदेश डीजी प्रिजन ने ये इंस्ट्रक्शन दिए हैं सारे सुपरिटेंडेंट्स को कि पूरे उत्तर प्रदेश की हर जेल में एक अच्छी सुसज्जित पुस्तकालय की स्थापना होनी चाहिए। तो मुझे लगता है कि मॉडल और भी जगह होगा।
Thank you, Rishi ji. Amazing and very compassionate initiatives. Really impressive. In fact, some of us may have heard about this curse of natural resources or curse of mining, like they say. You know, interestingly, wherever there are natural resources found under the ground, those areas are the poorest in India as well as globally also. If you look at Bihar, Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh or some African countries. So that was one. Second is, I don't know, maybe when I was born, किसी पंडित ने प्रोफाइज किया था कि you will be very neat but you will end up working in polluting industries. So I had a long stint with automobile industries which was creating pollution, and then I went to infrastructure companies, mining companies, power companies. I worked with Industry and Power, Maruti Suzuki, GMR, GVK, Kane Oil and Gas. So wherever possible, and currently I'm director with Chetak Logistics. Logistics is another sector where all the time you have big lorries running on diesel. So we're creating a lot of pollution. So why I thought of this was the compassionate part. At Chetak Logistics we have this foundation, and our prime beneficiaries, since we run a lot of transport of our drivers. And drivers are the least respected segment or strata of society. So one of the initiatives that we taken is, can we bring back respect to this profession? So we are taking a lot of intervention wherein we work with them and we bring some kind of respect, because wherever they go they get berated by policemen. They never respected, they don't get any facilities. So we are currently working on that interventions. So that brings me to Sapna ji. Sapna is from Nalanda University. She is the founder dean of School of Management. And like people from academic, they don't believe, they strongly believe that if you can't measure anything, so it should not be done. So I'll ask her that first question about impact assessment in CSR initiative. That is one area that she's worked a lot of stuff on. So can you kindly introduce yourself and share some bit on this?
Thank you. I'll give a very short and brief introduction of mine. I have been working in the area of CSR and sustainability for last 20 years. And right now I am the Dean of Nalanda University, where I was asked to set up this School of Management Studies with focus on sustainable development and management. In our school, we have MBA program, and students from over 32 countries, they come and study. Prime Minister has very kindly supported these foreign students through BIMSTEC and ASEAN scholarships, and it is one of the prestigious programs within a span of 4 years. So this is the brief introduction. Besides that, I also had Global Network for Sustainable Development, Arizona, US, as its honorary director. And now let me come back to my real experience, which is in the field. So I would first like to second what Sakina said, very rightly, that CSR has to be strategically implemented. In fact, in 2006 there was a CSR conference by Times Foundation, and I was attending that as a faculty. And we have today, it is 2023, we have traveled a long way. When I talked to the people, those who were in the hall, they told me that many of these were people who were working in marketing, HR, in other areas, and they were just thrown into foundations and CSRs. So after a decade that we are here, decade of mandatory CSR, CSR was happening even before that, as I'm telling you. There have been a few gaps, and number one is that in many corporations there is a very clear-cut strategy, in multinationals, in some very Indian organizations as well. There is a clear-cut strategy which flows from the top, and there is a lot of thinking. And believe me, this was also before mandatory CSR came into practice. So, but in many of the organizations, they are merely doing it for fulfilling 2% of requirement. which I'm not happy with. I'm very disappointed with. So, different organizations in the same industry, they are working on a CSR project. For example, it is education or health. But at the end of the day, what is the cumulative impact that they are making? The efforts are not concerted. Through this stage, I would like to request all those who are working in CSR professionals that let us collaborate within the industry, across the industry. There are a lot of learnings that we can give away to each other, and there is a lot of knowledge exchange that can happen. So there is a lot of collaboration that has to happen this way, and we today, if I talk about, everyone is working on STEM project, health and other, various areas, or, toilets and many other things. But tell me, how are we measuring the impact of these small, big and medium-sized projects? We are, I'm not happy with, sorry that I'm being very critical, but we are professors, we have to be critical in order to guide you in the right direction. So I would say that, these projects, we have to come together and we have to see that how together we have made impact. There are no numbers when it comes to impact assessment. There are only case studies. There are some pictures and there are some stories. So these are the things that I would like you to think upon. And then, CSR strategy has to be directional. Every firm today has to think not only about the short-term and medium-term strategy, but also the long-term strategy. And one of the gaps that we have found through our research is that some of the areas in CSR are very well covered: education, health, etc. And here I would like to, support Monica ji's point, my friend Monica ji's point, that there are few areas which are not at all covered. For example, art and culture. Nobody is paying attention to this. Second is biodiversity. So where are our efforts in biodiversity? Doing some short projects here and there is not going to help. Then climate change. We need more efforts in terms of climate change. So LGBTQ. In recent, I'm part of the C20 working group for G20 Presidency of India. There also we have given recommendations that there needs to be efforts even amongst the G20 countries and marginalized communities. And we are not talking about these marginalized communities. So CSR funds can be utilized very well to those. Similarly, there are gaps in regions. Northeast not getting any funds. So there are, my student, Anushri Podar in her PhD study has found that only 4 or 5 states are getting maximum of funds. So Northeast, we are not giving any funds. So this is where, and through this platform, I would like to urge all the companies to, fulfill these gaps. Thank you.
Thank you, Sapna. In fact, I was not my teacher's favorite student, and when Sapna ji said, "I'm not happy," I thought she was directing at me. And did you notice Rishi Pathania sitting on the edge of the seat, getting impatient? I'm not being asked anything. I thought he was watching a thriller or something, sitting on the edge. So we're coming to you, Rishi. Before that, I will test some more of your patience before we come to you. I'll just quickly share, and I promised you, Sapna, that we'll measure this initiative. I was talking about coming from a polluting sector, logistics. I'm happy to share that we are converting our company into a green logistics company. Logistics essentially has 2-3 elements. One is the transportation. We run trucks. We are now currently working with Tata Motors to develop electric trucks. Electric trucks currently do not exist in India. And we are converting our warehouses into solar warehouses, and even the material handling equipment we are converting to CNG. Last mile connectivity also we are converting to electric or CNG. So we are aspiring to become a green logistics company. And I also promised to you that we have diverse set of panelists, and now I'm going to introduce Mr. Rishi Pathania, who's VP of UPL, and he has a global CSR role. Before we ask him about global experience, we're keen to change the topic to bring in nature conservation and biodiversity. That is one area that Rishi is very fond of. In case you can throw some light on that after introducing yourself. Thank you, Rishi.
Thank you, Arun. Actually, I was not making faces. I was realizing one thing, that the more I'll say, I'll be termed as a anti-social responsibility person, because it's already 8 p.m. So whether you measure it from ESG or CSR perspective, I'm sure I'll be termed as a more anti-CSR, anti-social responsibility person. Anyway, that's a lighter note. I hope people are still awake. First of all, welcome to Raipur. This is my hometown, so I think I've got a right to welcome all of you. So welcome to Raipur. Second is a bit of a visionary thing that senior people should have. I really want to touch upon that part of it, because I think that's related to the strategy part also. You all have heard about Mr. Mayank Gandhi's work in global parliament. Wonderful work, and the impact that it has created at a larger scale. But few people in UPL were having a kind of a vision that they thought we need to support this when it got started. So I think it's very important, people sitting out here in senior positions or responsibilities, to identify that kind of a work that happens, so that you can really support to create an impact. It's not necessary that you have to create impact on your own every time, but you really need to have that vision that this will create an impact. So that's the one submission that I really want to make. The second important aspect is, a lot of us are getting carried away with the terms that are being used on different forums. So when I joined this space, I was from a typical development sector background person 25 years back. CSR was new, then all of a sudden sustainability came in, then G3. I was one of the first who was invited in Amsterdam for the G3 launch. But then you see a lot of things happening at a sustainability space, having different elements coming in. Then ESG came in. Then we are struggling with the terms like gender diversity and inclusion. And now I think my friend Abhishek has thrown us to new words, whether it's the supply chain or you really have to work on the pay part of it. But I think as a head of a CSR or a person who is responsible for company's social responsibility, I think one thing is very clear to me, whatever terms come to me, I have to ensure that we do the best work for the people, for the environment. I think these things get taken care of. You really don't have to get carried away with the terms and terminologies and new things that keep on coming at different point of time. As Arun was talking about, I'll just touch two things that we are doing which will give you a perspective of the work that we do. We have got so many other initiatives, but there are few things that get left out. Biodiversity and nature conservation is one initiative which really gets left out. Not many people have passionately driven that. UPL, we have been fortunate enough to get the management support to drive species conservation project. We picked up Saras as a species, and we have really worked very hard in the last 8 years. We have ensured the pocket that we have picked up, Saras has increased from 500 odd to some 1100 in last 7 years. This is by far one of the biggest best result in conservation project. Conservation project takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. We have taken vulture as a second species. We have taken deer and ungulates as a third species that we are working in. So that's one part. The second is also was so refreshing to see the work that someone is displaying on coral reefs. I don't know how many people here know about coral reefs and the importance it has on the society. How many people know about mangroves and what is the role that it plays for the society. So we have worked extensively on that. Apart from the regular work that we do on social forestry, eco-club, educating youths and children for the environmental conservation project, we have done definitely on that space. And the last bit from my side is, as a responsible organization and a responsible true global Indian MNC, we have taken giving back to society at a global level also. So we have not bottled from others, we have a culture of giving back. So we have taken it to our global sites, whether it's in Latin America, we have done almost 7 to 8 countries. Now we have started our work in CSR space in Africa also. So that's a true spirit that you have to really take forward as an organization, as an individual. You can't be restricted by a law or geography. You have to really take it forward with a holistic approach. I'll just take a pause because I do understand limitation of time.
You forgot drip irrigation activities that you are undertaking in UPL.
Thank you. We trust Sapna to always keep measuring. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Rishi. Amazing point. Like one of the previous speakers had mentioned, the human species is so cruel. They eat everything that is possible. So let's let go of all animals, nature, leave them alone, and I think we live in a peaceful world. In fact, CSR, the success of CSR, Sakina, is that how well do we involve all employees, because CSR is not responsibility of just CSR or HR department. So a lot of companies try to involve the employees.
It is definitely voluntary to some sense, but it's a reverse voluntary, where we tell the employees that whatever they have to contribute, their skills, knowledge, expertise, how they can give it to the society. While doing good, they can always contribute what they themselves don't know that they can contribute outside their work hours. So we have a proper set of initiatives from them. In fact, we have a set of initiatives for future leaders. In Bosch, we have a program called Future Leadership Program, where we provide opportunities for future leaders to excel in business, how they can become future leaders, how they can take up responsibilities in future. And in that Future Leadership Program, there is a particular segment which is a social engagement program for them. Not because we have to tell them that go do good in the society, but we say go and learn from the society, learn from organizations, NGOs, learn innovation, learn how to do more and less, learn how to be empathetic towards own team. So that is a learning exercise for them, so that when they become leaders in future, they're able to make sure that their teams are very empathetic, and not only in business but outside, in the community, to the stakeholders that they have, the supply chain, value chain, and how they're able to give back to the experience and expertise they have. You will be surprised to know that we have a lot of people who have done totally different things than their own expertise. We have finance people teaching music, we have finance people building capacity of non-profit organizations and strategy building, on planning, on timeline setup. So this way we are able to exchange. Here we are not only providing them opportunities which are small time, we are providing them opportunities which are long term. Long term in the sense that they are connected with different initiatives, different causes for multiple months, so that they go not only learn but invest their time, but at the same time we do an impact assessment post they come back. What is the feedback of the entity they were assigned to, and what is their own feedback? This becomes a channelizing thing for us to make sure that earlier and future engagements both progress in terms of the quality that we try to put in. So the engagement is only not for future leadership, but the engagement is also for the top leadership of Bosch. So we send them to knowledge assignment to different organizations for them to go and visit sites. Our trustees meetings, our CSR steering committee meetings all happen in project sites. So they get to see beyond the AC offices where we do our trustee meeting and all. We don't do trustee meetings in AC offices. We are there in the field for each project. We assign 3 projects, and we do it for the board also. We are planning for the Bosch Limited board. We have plans to take them to the field so that they can look at the project and then decide at the boardroom what has to be done for that project. So it's a simple matter of seeing is believing, and we do follow that for volunteering and engagement as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate the clarity of thought. Amazing and ruthless to get top management also to go to villages. Serve them right. We can promise to shorten our discussion time, provided you stop your own personal discussions. Be attentive. Thank you. Okay, trust Dr. Rishi to always work on compassionate areas. Another area that he's been working on is migrant labor, and special focus on women and children. So, Dr. Rishi, can you share some bit on that?
एक दिन गौतम बुद्ध नगर जेल में मैं बैठा हुआ था किसी काम से, तो एक इनमेट वहाँ से उसने जेलर को रिक्वेस्ट किया कि साहब से मिलना है, तो ही अप्रोच में ऐसे इसको अलाउ कर दो क्या है, तो आके रोने लगा कि बोले साहब मेरा बच्चा था 7-8 साल का, उसको पुलिस उठा लेगी, वाइफ ने बताया। मतलब ठीक है, चलो पता करते। जब जाके पता किया तो पता पड़ता है कि फादर कोई वहाँ इंडस्ट्री में कहीं मूवमेंट कुछ झगड़ा हुआ होगा, उस चक्कर में पुलिस ने फादर को अंदर कर दिया। उसकी मदर कहीं किसी कंपनी में गार्ड का नौकरी करती है, वो वहाँ चली जाती है। उसके 3 भाई हैं छोटे छोटे, 3 बच्चे हैं, तीनों को ड्रग पेडलिंग के काम में फंसा दिया गया। अब उनकी एज है 6 साल, 7 साल, 8 साल, और वो तीनों के तीनों ड्रग पेडलिंग में फंसे हुए। खैर वहाँ लोकल एसपी से बात की कि साहब ऐसा ऐसा केस हुआ। बोले साहब इनके पास से तो ड्रग पकड़ी गई है। उनको समझाया कि साहब ये 6 साल का बच्चा, 8 साल का बच्चा, इसको पकड़ के आप क्या कर लोगे। खैर उन्होंने शी वाज वेरी काइंड दैट टाइम, जो IPS लेडी थी, उन्होंने छुड़वा दिया। 2 दिन वहाँ से कहीं से रखा करके किसी NGO में पता पड़ता है कि वो तीनों बच्चे ड्रग एडिक्ट्स भी हो गए थे। उनको सारा पता था कि कहाँ से ड्रग्स लेनी है, कहाँ से शराब लेनी है, कौन सी ड्रग कितने की आती है, किस पुलिस वाले को कितना पैसा दिया जाता है। दे वर वेल क्वालिफाइड इन दैट। उसी समय नोएडा, ग्रेटर नोएडा की मेट्रो लाइन चल रही थी, तो वी थॉट क्या यहाँ इतनी जगह इसकी नोएडा की मेट्रो लाइन के नीचे जाती है, एंड देयर इज अ स्पॉट, पली चौक जो कहलाता है, वो वहाँ का ड्रग पेडलिंग का सबसे बड़ा सेंटर था। और वहाँ पर आसपास वही चीज जो अभी पहले एनालिस्ट बोल रहे थे कि 2 चीजें चलेंगी, ESG एंड डेवलपमेंट। क्या आपको डेवलपमेंट चाहिए? प्रायोरिटी क्या है? तो ग्रेटर नोएडा अपकमिंग एरिया है, इंडस्ट्रियल एरिया है। एक साइड में जहाँ एयरपोर्ट बन रहा है, बड़ी बड़ी इंडस्ट्रीज आ रही है, तो दूसरी साइड में नए स्लम्स भी डेवलप हो रहे हैं। और वहाँ जो लोग रहने आ रहे हैं स्लम्स में, उनकी प्रायोरिटी बच्चों की एजुकेशन नहीं है, उनकी प्रायोरिटी उनका पेट पालना है। एनीवे, इसको कट करते हुए तो वहाँ पर फिर एक प्लान किया गया कि एक स्कूल इनके लिए कैसे डाला जाए। तो ग्रेटर नोएडा अथॉरिटी, नोएडा मेट्रो रेल अथॉरिटी से बात करके उन्होंने एक जगह लीज दी, उसके नीचे एक खूबसूरत मॉडल स्कूल का वहाँ बनाया गया है। तो उसमें फिर ये था कि बच्चे आते नहीं, बच्चों को खींच के लाएं कैसे। तो बच्चों के साथ में फिर उनके फादर को, मदर को मोटिवेट किया कि भाई आप जॉब करने जा रहे हो, अपनी वाइफ को भेजो यहाँ पढ़ने के लिए। तो until unless lady will not be agreed, she will not create that kind of environment in the family, she will not understand the importance of the education. तो फादर एक बार तो एग्री हो या ना हो फर्क नहीं पड़ता है, लेकिन घर की महिला को एग्री होना बहुत जरूरी है। तो उनके लिए सिलाई के लिए, पढ़ाई के लिए वहाँ व्यवस्था की गई। फिर उन बच्चों को लाया गया। फिर ये था कि वो सेगमेंट जो किसी तरीके से गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में तो जा रहे हैं बट दे आर नॉट गेटिंग क्वालिटी एजुकेशन, तो उनके लिए रेमेडियल क्लासेस हुई। फिर वो बच्चे की जो 10th 12th कर रहे हैं लेकिन उनके पास में स्किल्स नहीं है, तो उनके लिए कंप्यूटर लिटरेसी का प्रोग्राम चालू किया गया। तो इस तरीके का कंप्लीट जो प्रोजेक्ट है वो 360 डिग्री घूम गया। एंड आई एम वेरी हैप्पी टू शेयर हियर कि इस समय लगभग डिफरेंट बैचेस में वहाँ पर सेंटर पर ऑलमोस्ट जो लोग ड्रग पेडलिंग के काम में लगे हुए थे, छोटे बच्चे, बड़े तो आज भी कर रहे हैं, लेकिन जो 16-17 साल से छोटे के बच्चे लगे थे वो एक भी नहीं। और लगभग 250-300 महिलाएं, बच्चियां, कचरा बीनने वाले, ये सब वहाँ आते हैं। और वो स्कूल ग्रेटर नोएडा का, अगर जो आप TPS वगैरह की जो टॉप लेयर वाले स्कूल्स को आप छोड़ दीजिए, अदरवाइज कई पब्लिक स्कूल से बेटर है। इनफॉर्मल स्कूल है लेकिन फुल्ली एयर कंडीशन है, उसमें जो सुविधाएं चाहिए वो है सारी, और उसके लिए पैसे की कहीं कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं आती है। बिकॉज आई ऑलवेज यूज्ड टू से CSR came later, first is important is ISR, individual social responsibility. If we are not socially responsible, लाख प्रयास कर ले कॉर्पोरेट, लाख प्रयास कर ले गवर्नमेंट, सिस्टम कैन नॉट बी इम्प्रूव्ड। This was, thank you.
That is amazing. Again, amazing initiatives, very, very passionate and impressive. I wanted to talk about ISR. Really good. Really happy. Sapna, we're going to ask you a long round question. Sapna is, believes in measuring the effectiveness of CSR interventions, and we need to not only measure, we have to sustain and we have to scale up. That is one. Second is also creating sustainable livelihood by empowering youth. In case you can touch upon these areas since you have extensively worked in this, that will be very useful. Thanks.
Thank you for this question. In fact, during the CSR projects, we do a lot of work with the communities. So I have had the opportunity of working with various corporates and also, not CSR but multilateral funding agencies. I've worked a lot of work on the ground. And what I have found is that as long as the money is there in those areas, the project gets sustained. The moment the money is over or the corporate goes away from that community or the village, then it becomes really difficult to sustain that organization or project or whatever case study they have built. So sustaining the initiatives is an important area, because if you don't do that, whatever investment you had been putting for 3 to 5 years, that also goes entirely waste. And you have trained people, you have empowered them, and you move away. In fact, we were working in, I had a project funded by Bharat Coking Coal Limited, Ministry of Coal, and we were working in coal mining areas of Jharkhand. And there was lot of unrest amongst the communities with the company. They never wanted to talk to companies. So we were there and we did lot of work there to promote integrated livelihoods which were not only environment friendly, like fish, we trained them in fisheries, goat rearing, because these areas are really water deficient because of the mining activities. So if there is no water, they cannot take up agricultural activities. So we trained them in agricultural allied activities. Then girls were trained into sewing, knitting, etc. And there were good case studies coming up. And then suddenly the funding stopped because our project was over for 3 years. So that is this is where the problem comes in. I think a few suggestions. If for every project that you start, you have to see that how it can be financially viable, and local communities must be trained to make it financially viable. Because if it is a project with building some machine tools or repairing machine tools, and you have trained the communities must be able to repair it themselves, and they must know that how they can make money. So local opinion leaders have helped me in these projects in Odisha, wherever I work, in Bihar, Jharkhand, in lab producing areas. So I think one is the role of the local opinion leader and how they link it with the communities. Second is that the financial viability must be set right from the start of the project. So you should be able to, just like we do it in business, and we are very good at it because we are a business house, we do it in our offices all the time. So I think if we can train them that how it can be financially viable, and it should be mostly locally supported. If this project draws on any technology which is coming from outside, or human resource or labor coming from outside, then there is going to be the problem. So as far as possible, we should take help of the indigenous technologies, indigenous people, those who are already trained, or we have to just polish the skills. But financial viability is must.
Thank you, Sapna. I am definitely going to join Nalanda University now. So we have a last question for Rishi. We clubbed 2 questions for all sessions. So Rishi has very interesting global exposure in CSR, so he shares a bit about how they do it overseas. There is one on the other extreme. Rishi has also personally and deeply studied how CSR evolved in India. So maybe can you touch upon both extremes, your global experience as well as how it evolved in India?
Arun, that's a bit of a long topic because I don't think in the interest of time or the audience capacity I'll touch upon this. But just to touch upon the history part, I think a lot of people refer CSR as 2013, which may be correct from their own understanding. Some will refer going to 50 years back. I'm working with an organization where it got started 50 years back. Some will refer from a Tata's perspective 100 years back. I think we all have our different own understanding. I did a bit of a research, and it's my own primary research. I went and studied different ancient literature. It starts with Rig Veda. So, and it's a clear-cut, defined system how you have to do a social responsibility. You come to Chanakya, it's a clear-cut, defined. Then I went across different religions. So whether it's a Jakat, whether it's a giving Dharmada, whether it's a Sikh culture, everyone has that component in religion also. So it goes that back. Then if you just see from Indian perspective also, there was always a culture by Marwadi businessmen of giving back to society by way of school, colleges, everything. Then Gandhiji's trustee came in, then there's a PSU that came in, then the law came in. So essentially the point I'm making is from our understanding perspective, let's understand and appreciate this has been with us right from beginning. In fact, I always love to quote this. There's an interesting discussion between Rahim and Tulsidas. I've quoted this many a times, in many forums. So Rahim has this unique habit of giving to poor, and whenever he used to give his eyes. Tulsidas knew very well what is the reason, but he still asked him. I don't know whether many people know that Tulsidas and Rahim are of same period and they were contemporary from that perspective. He said, it's actually a beautiful shlok which says, ऐसी देन दियो जो कित सीखे हो से जो तुम करो तो नीचे नैन. मतलब, how have we learned dear this art of giving back to people? The more you give, your eyes goes down. Then he completes the couplet and he says, I'm not the giver. Giver is someone else. People just give me the credit, whereas it's not by me. So that's a kind of a culture that we have. So I just wanted to bring in that perspective. We have to understand and appreciate this is a legacy that we have. This is a background that we have. Second part is from global perspective. I'll not touch much. It's just that you have to work according to the needs and aspirations of the local community. You can't be going with a one fit for all. You have to just change that. That's where I'll take a pause.
Thank you, Rishi. That was really amazing. In fact, ancient culture, all of us Indians, we used to believe that we should share 15% of whatever we earn. That was a very, very old practice that we had followed for years. But, one more point I'll make before I close it, so we are through with the questions. Dr. Rishi Tiwari had made a very interesting point about how reading books is not a hobby. It's a savior and a therapy for prisoners. In fact, I would have let him speak that, but it was a selfish interest also because today Rusenji and I co-authored a book called The Power of Reading. So that goes very well with that. There is one second is, I'll just make one more point and I would like to thank all the panelists. One is that, one perspective could be we can talk about what is that government is not doing, other corporates are not doing, other people are not doing. Or on the other hand, can we say what is that we are doing, what is that we commit to do, what is that I can do. That is where the concept of ISR comes in. Thank you very much for being patient listener. I would love to thank Sakina, Sapna and both the Rishis. Such a pleasure interacting with you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all the panelists. Please just a minute, sir. I request Mr. Hussain Kumar, sir, to
I hope others don't carry the trophies again.
सर एक बार कैमरा जरा देखिएगा आप लोग.
तो आइडिया ये है कि हमारे जो ट्रेडिशनल गेम्स हैं आजकल वो मैं बहुत आज भी देख रहा था छत्तीसगढ़ या ओलंपिक्स की बात हो रही है, हमारे खो-खो और हमारे जो ट्रेडिशनल गेम्स हैं उनको प्रमोट करने की बात हो रही है. तो ये इनिशिएटिव हमने 3 साल पहले शुरू किया था. हुसैन जी मैं माफ़ी चाहूँगा जस्ट 2 मिनट और लूँगा क्योंकि ये मंच is too big for me to miss out to highlight these issues. लास्ट इशू जो मैं एक थोड़ा हाईलाइट करना चाहता था, अगेन मैं एक स्टैटिस्टिक्स के माध्यम से आपको थोड़ा सा सेंसिटाइज करना चाहता हूँ कि पिछले 2 फाइनेंशियल ईयर में